Hey, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Just wanted to check in here for a few minutes and share a little bit of my story. So go ahead, hit that like button, hit that share button, post this in your groups and on your Facebook page. Um, I've had some questions recently. Uh, People want to know kind of why I'm running, right? That's one of the most important questions a politician gets asked. And, a lot of you may have heard, little snippets over the years or met me in an event and got a lot more information. But I wanted to kind of fill you guys in on specifically why I'm running for office, because I think it's important. I'm not a politician by nature. I don't enjoy politics. This is not a life that I sought out for myself or my family. In fact, it's quite the opposite. But it's important to me to take care of my family, to set an example for my son, my now 5-year-old son, and my wife, and to lead our family and to make sure our family has what we need for our lives, right? And for our happiness. And my wife and I got married. My wife, Erica, and I got married back in 2013. And by 2015, we were pregnant and we're set to have our first son. And as we got married and we talked about our future as a family and what life we wanted, how many kids we wanted, all that kind of stuff, the family planning conversation came up. And I had a little bit of insurance through my employer, but my wife was self-employed and didn't have any insurance. So naturally, when we put our big boy and girl pants on after we got married and started putting everything together for our future, and one of those things was shopping for insurance, specifically for health insurance. And like so many of you, as we were shopping for insurance on the open market, we didn't qualify for subsidies because we make too much money. I call that rich poor. Basically the entire middle class that makes above, $30,000 a year to about $80,000 a year is oftentimes struggling nowadays. But they don't qualify for the same level of assistance that, maybe somebody that's below the poverty line does. So, we're shopping for insurance and we're looking, within our limited budget as a newlywed company, family that's, talking about buying a house and having kids and, purchasing a second vehicle that would be reliable for a lot of years and really just trying to find a policy that met our needs. My wife likes going to the acupuncturist and the chiropractor. And we don't take as many pharmaceutical drugs, but we have a pretty healthy family, right? So we kind of had an idea of what some of our risk factors were, what types of services that brought value to our lives, and what our future would bring, as having a kid. So we knew we needed good prenatal coverage, right? So we found a lot of policies on the market were too expensive or deductibles were too high or had limited coverages for what my wife wanted for herself. It was really frustrating and difficult to shop. And that's an experience that I think resonates with pretty much the whole country when it comes to buying insurance on the open market. Pre and post Obamacare, we were looking in the Washington State healthcare system, right, for the different plans we would qualify for. And that system wasn't user friendly, froze a lot. I didn't have all the information available, and oftentimes things would time out before we'd even get through an application to get price quotes. But we found a policy. We found a policy that was a little expensive, but was brought more bang for the buck than a lot of the other policies that we were looking at. It offered specific coverages that my wife and I knew we would need. And while it wasn't a perfect insurance policy and was definitely more expensive than I think it needs to be going forward, it was a policy we were happy to purchase. It brought us more or less what we needed for our life. Fast forward a year later, my wife's pregnant. We give birth and, everything's going well. 3 months after my son was born, we got a notice in the mail from the insurance company saying that they were leaving the state of Washington and we're canceling our insurance policy. Okay. And that's something that I think a lot of people in the state of Washington have experienced because we've had a plethora of insurance carriers leave Washington due to overregulation. So I've got a wife that just went through a pregnancy. She's recovering from a C-section. I have a 3-month-old son that's going to need, frequent doctor's visits, right, as every infant does. And all of a sudden we get a notice telling me as a father that my wife and son are going to be uninsured after we just spent months shopping for a policy and agonizing over the terrible options that were out there, and finally found one that we liked. And the company left the state of Washington. And they left because of the regulations here in Washington are so burdensome that it's nearly impossible for an insurance carrier to do business in a way that brings somebody a policy like myself value. And we've seen that over the last 20 years that one man's been in control in the state insurance commissioner's office, where we have less and less choices. He's excited right now in the state of Washington because every county has at least 2, and he's patting himself on the back for this, saying that he has 2 choices for, at least 2 choices for everybody in the state of Washington. And frankly, I find that pathetic that he would pat himself on the back for that. No more than 2 years removed from 17 counties in the state of Washington only have 1 option for health insurance. So we lost insurance in a market where it's expensive to live without health insurance because healthcare is expensive. And to buy a new product, frankly, was just not going to happen for us. I, immediately started shopping again for coverage, found that in the year that we had purchased that other policy, that prices had gone up about 15%, and deductibles had gotten higher, and out-of-pocket maximums had even gotten lower in many cases. So genuinely feeling defeated and not finding the product that I knew my family needed to really be safe in an environment where one medical emergency can bankrupt you in this day and age. So we made a kind of a forced decision to go uninsured. That was the only option for us, living on one income because my wife wasn't working after the pregnancy for a while. And things were too expensive. And even the ones that we could afford, they just were terrible policies and we just didn't want. So we made the choice to go uninsured at a time when my family was most vulnerable. Then a few months later, I get the bill from the IRS at tax season telling me that we owe money because we went more than 9 months without, I think it was 9 months, forgive me, 9 months without insurance. And we were going to owe the federal government money for not buying insurance. And that immediately pissed me off, to be frank. The idea that government can take your money for not buying a free market product, whether it's insurance or cereal, is irrelevant. Okay, it doesn't matter what the product is. You shouldn't be forced to purchase anything, and the government shouldn't be stealing your money for not doing it. And instead of just accepting that, I got involved in politics and started fighting back. But my story goes on from there. We didn't pay that fine for just 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. We paid it for 4 years. I paid over $4,000 in fines to the federal government for not buying health insurance, something that we didn't want because the policies were terrible and that we couldn't afford. Taking that money from us made it harder to buy insurance. So had a policy come available, we'd have less money available to purchase it. It also made it harder to save, to pay cash for maybe an unexpected medical expense or even a planned visit for maybe our 1-year-old or 2-year-old. So the government was exasperating an already broken issue by forcing us to buy something that we didn't want and then taking our money when we decided to not comply with that. And that thought of government force and coercion is really paramount to who I am as a libertarian. The idea that government shouldn't impact your personal choices in your life, no matter what those choices are, so long as they don't hurt anybody else. So having money taken from us and making it harder to care for my child, frankly, was unacceptable to me as a man of the house, as a father, as a husband. And that's when in 2008, I decided to run for state insurance commissioner. And because I'd heard similar stories from friends or family members that own, small businesses and their insurance rates are skyrocketing and they're having to cancel their insurance, and as I've traveled the state for 2.5 years campaigning for this, that story has just multiplied 1,000-fold. I've not heard anybody satisfied with insurance in the state of Washington or anywhere in the country for that matter. And one man has had power and control over this entire industry for 20 years. one person making the executive decision on what type of insurance you can buy, and frankly, setting the price points that those are sold at. And letting that happen is no longer acceptable to me. We need to get people in office that will understand the unintended consequences of each and every one of these policy regulations and fees and taxes and rules that get added onto insurance that make it harder for a small business owner to offer insurance to their employer, that make it less likely that somebody can go to the doctor and have insurance, and to really have an insurance system that is driving doctors out of the medical field entirely, making all of us less healthy. So I'm running for insurance commissioner because I'm pissed off about what happened to my family. I've known it's happened to so many other families. So for me, this isn't about just my family. It's about all of our families. And putting somebody in office that is going to fight tooth and nail to make sure that everybody is respected by the government here in Washington, that no matter what type of insurance you want or don't want, that we have the most robust insurance market so that it can be flexible for our diverse needs and the different lifestyles that we have and the different health conditions that might pop up, so that we can be flexible and accountable to you, the consumer. Because what we have is broken, and continuing to duplicate what's been going on is just insanity. And we have a choice in the August primary to vote for somebody that's been in office for now 40 years, 20 years in this position, that wants to do more of the same and wants to double and triple and quadruple down on failed policies, never admitting a single one might not have worked. Or you can elect somebody that has an eye on the future, that's fighting for his 5-year-old son, that is fighting for your family, for your parents, for your children, and will not rest. And by not rest, I mean not rest at all, to make sure that government stops breaking these things even worse than they already have. We can continue to do the same thing over, or we can try a different path. I have a lot of ideas that I know I've been sharing for months now. Check them out on my website, anthonywelty.com. And, send me a message. Tell me your story. Let me share your story, because I know this is not just me that's having these issues. I know that because I've been traveling the state full-time since September, and I've talked to thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And it's so obvious that this is broken. And I just want you to know that I care about your families. I want to help your families. I want to help your small businesses. I want to help your medical providers, have an insurance system that doesn't suck. And we need an eye on the future. And the incumbent simply doesn't have that, has not shown he has any desire to change what he's doing. And I believe that I can do that for us. So I humbly ask for your vote in August. I ask you to share my campaign page with your friends and your family member, because I'm fighting for all of us through this. So anyways, I just wanted to share a little bit of my story. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Reach out if you have any questions. I'm going to go ahead and log off here. I hope you guys have a great afternoon. And just remember, be free, vote Welty.